Okay, so I thought I'd do a fish room tour for you guys to let you see kind of how I have things set up and what all I've got going on in the fish room since I haven't done a fish room tour before. And I've got my air pump and dehumidifier turned off just so you guys can hear a little better. When you walk in, there's a 55-gallon to the left that has grow out for some frontosas, sunshine peacocks, and electric blue ollies. And then on top of this tank I keep the crown tail bettas. Then when you go around to the first rack, up on top is a 40-gallon breeder with my Lethrinops red cap trio and a young group of Lawanda peacocks, and I've thrown in a few small red caps. Then there's a couple empty tanks, and then a 10-gallon that has a couple baby gold ocellatus shell dwellers somewhere in there. Down to the next shelf is a 15-gallon grow out for some red cap Batungai, and another 15-gallon that has some small blue neon Stewart Grantees. Another 15-gallon with some swordtails. And another 15-gallon that has some hybrid OB peacocks crossed to ruby red peacock. And I'll only be selling males of those. Then we've got a 10-gallon that has a black inkfin calvus female with a bunch of tiny babies in the shell. I just moved them into here to try and save some babies, and it looks like we've got one tiny little baby that has come out of the shell. Then we've got another 10-gallon grow out that has a bunch of Cynotilapia afra haras that I just stripped. Down to the next row is another 40-gallon breeder that is a grow out for some firefish, some Alanocara Jacob Freibergi Carolines, and there's a few red cap Atungai in there, and also a trio of Synodontis lucipinus catfish in there. I'll move the light to the next tank, which is a 20-gallon that has some small Pseudotrophus solosii and Demasonides, and it also has some small Zystichromis flameback. And we've got a 10-gallon that has some really small OB peacocks growing out. Down to the bottom, there's a 15-gallon with some bigger blue neon Stewart Grantees. Then we've got a 10-gallon with the rest of the Zystichromis flameback. And another 10-gallon that's a mix of a few electric yellows, some red capatungi, and a couple firefish. And we've got a 40-gallon breeder that has a Lonocara hooseri, a young group of them. Looks like there's at least 2 males starting to get a bit of color. And the lone male gold ocellatus shell dweller. Then we've got a 110-gallon stock tank that is just a big grow out for ruby red peacocks, Seleuces, and some young electric blue ollies. Then we go over to the 90-gallon, which is kind of a mix of a bunch of stuff. There's a group of Copetochromis cristonatus, and then there's a group of Zystichromis ruby greens, my OB male, and a few random guys. There's a couple of red Malarotrophus, the inkfin calvus male. This is usually where the female is. Nice big electric yellow male. And then around to the next rack, there's a 20-gallon grow out for my OB peacocks. And a 55-gallon has my OB female, a young trio of electric blue ollies, trio of Taiwan reefs, my trio of firefish, there's a young flameback male, and a trio of Spilinotus Tanzania that just started breeding. Down to the next row is a group of Cynotilapia afrahara, and they're all hiding because I turned the air pump off, so they're wondering why there's no bubbles. There's one of the males down there. Then we've got a group of Blue Neon Stuart Grantee, and I've added a bunch of the juveniles back in. There's a male. There's another male there that's starting to get a bit of color. Down on the bottom is a bunch of Chilotilapia rhodesi. And then we got a 30-gallon sort of planted tank with my apistogrammas and a bunch of baby bushy-nosed plecos, some cories, a couple guppies, and then the last tank is another 55-gallon with redfin borleis, and marmalade cichlids and a couple firefish. Up on top of this tank is all the male half-moon bettas. And I forgot to show you all the female bettas are up on top of the 90. And then there's a bunch of placat and a couple dragon veil tail bettas on the table. And my air system is all piped along the ceiling, and then I run lines down to each tank, and my air pump is up in the corner with a little spare pump in case that one quits working. So that's our fish room.